Cece Bates, thank you so much for being here with us. I should probably start by saying Dr. Cece Bates, thank you for being here with us today and coming back to share more about this beautiful and just insightful book, Interactive Writing, Developing Readers Through Writing. You were with us back in October and put together a whole series for us on how we can use interactive writing to develop readers. And you are currently right now on the Clemson campus and that beautiful campus behind you. And you are the Associate Professor of Literacy Education at Clemson University and the director of Clemson University Reading Recovery and Early Literacy Training Center. And you've been published in so many places. So we're super excited to have you back today because yes, interactive writing is just so powerful and useful and doable on digital.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yes. So I'm wondering if maybe today you could share like 3 tips for teachers who are looking to use interactive writing and are on a digital platform.
Sure. So it's good to be with you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you or with you again today about interactive writing and the importance of, really using interactive writing as a medium for teaching foundational skills.
Mhm.
So, luckily, it's very easy to conduct interactive writing in a virtual setting. And so, as we continue to deal with the ongoing pandemic, this is one of the ways where we can create meaningful texts with children that are, available for shared reading interactions after the texts have been written. And at the same time, I'm able to embed a lot of foundational skills. So we can focus on phonemic awareness and phonics and high frequency word instruction. So all of those things that take place as we deconstruct the message, but then we still have this fabulous message that's built with the children as a readable text when we're finished. So it looks
Wow.
different, right, in a virtual setting, but it's definitely doable. It does, as I think interactive writing in a traditional face-to-face setting also requires some management skills. I mean, that's part of, and that's one of the things that I really unpack in the book
Mhm.
is the need to make sure that I'm all set before I start in
Yeah.
on interactive writing, because when I'm in a classroom and I've got a chart and 20 little bodies in front of me, if I
Mhm.
don't have everything I need right there, it can fall apart pretty quickly.
Yeah.
'Cause it's hard, even though we're making this as interactive as possible for the children who aren't actually up at the chart, it also is built on the fact that the interactive piece means I'm sharing the pen and I am having children come up to that chart to differentiate my instruction. And so
Yes.
I really do kind of need to think through those things, not only in a traditional setting, but in a virtual setting as well.
Yes.
So I feel like, our entire lives are now on the Zoom platform. Like,
Mhm.
right, it's definitely going to be in a new dictionary entry. I think we use Zoom as a verb. It's, um, common in our everyday language now as we talk about Zooming with, whoever. But
Yes.
it's definitely, and we've been using Zoom at the university for years, and it is
Good.
amazing just in the, almost year that we've been dealing with the pandemic, the advances the platform has made.
Yes.
So super, I think, user friendly. I definitely recommend with any virtual platform, web-based collaborative tool or digital tool that you practice first.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I love technology. I follow, several folks on YouTube and on some social media platforms to kind of help me understand the digital tools, because I know
Uh,
what I want to do with them, but I don't know always how to use them. So one of my favorites is the new Ed Tech Classroom on YouTube. And he does a really great job of walking you through some of the platforms and the tools and talking about how you can use these in the classroom setting.
so Ed Tech Classroom?
Yes, the new
Okay.
Ed Tech
The
Classroom.
new Ed Tech Classroom on YouTube. Oh, I'm definitely going to check it out.
So with Zoom, I'm going to share my screen, and then one of the options is you can invite people to annotate on the screen. Now, as with anything, this not only takes practice on my part, but it's also taken practice on the children's part as they learn
Hmm.
to navigate, depending on the device they have.
Yes.
And that's another thing, like, right, I'm going to talk about some of these tools today, but you also have to figure out the devices the kids are using and how they are able to interact once you share your screen with them. And those are all kind of things that you got to figure out along the way.
Hmm.
But I think, you know, almost a year into this, we've gotten a lot better at it. The kids have gotten a lot better at it. The parents have gotten a lot better at it. And so I think that, as we become more proficient with the tools and the kids become more proficient, we are actually able to get to the nuts and bolts of what we're doing with those tools. And that is interactive writing. And so what's in the book is applicable whether it's in a traditional setting or whether it's in the virtual setting. So
Fantastic. And you started off with the word easy. I want to say that too, that when you first got on, you talked about the complexities of um, interactive writing, but then you also added the word easy to this. So it's just a matter of getting used to what you're going to share with us. But once we do, there's an ease to it.
that's right. I think one of the biggest challenges for me with interactive writing in the virtual setting is the size of the board, right? I mean, that becomes a problem with primary age children and their motor control. And
Mm,
how do I fit everything, you know, and with Zoom, one of the features that I kind of struggle with is that you can't have more than one whiteboard going at a time. So I'm going to also talk a little bit about Jamboard today. And the nice thing about Jamboard is that I can set up several boards and I can, kind of advance the slide and move on to a new board. But even then, if you're constructing a line of text, I've got to make that contained within, this frame. So you can see here that typically when I'm doing some type of morning message or headline news or a weekly update, I'll have a heading that I include every day. Same thing, whether it's morning message or headline news. And as that's written, it's a great way to increase letter identification, talk about letter formation, because the children see it day after day after day. In the virtual setting, I don't always do that because if I'm using Zoom and I only have that one whiteboard feature, I really begin to run out of space. So it's
uh,
pretty simplistic, as you can see here. It's just something about the date, and that can take a variety of different forms. It could be the day of the week, it could be the actual date, it could include the year. And I want to change that up with the kids so they see lots of different ways in which that's written, and they can then, of course, internalize and use that in their own writing. And then in this particular example, it's just a class update about what the weather is looking like outside. And you can see here it's cold and rainy. Not today, thank goodness, but in the winter in South Carolina, unfortunately, we don't get much snow, and that moisture is always in the form of a cold, drizzly rain.
yes.
So, one of the things that I talk about in the book is the way to kind of change up this daily interactive writing
Mhm.
that takes the place of headline news or morning message so that it, you know, doesn't become monotonous. So when we look even at like a report on the weather, there's a lot of different ways to look at that sentence structure to show
Mhm.
children how things can be worded differently and still have the same meaning.
Nice.
So in this particular example, you can see, and I'm going to just scroll over a couple places where you are able to see that the child took um, control of the pen and where I took control of the pen. And
Mhm.
so I am going to actually just spotlight. And this is one of the tools that I love is this spotlight. So, this is after we're finished with the text and we engage in that shared reading. I can follow this up and have asked children to show me particular things that they find in the text. So it may be, show me a letter or show me a word or
Mhm.
show me, a period. Which way do we go when we read? What do we do when we get to the end of the sentence? A lowercase, a capital, a word that begins like your name, or a word that's, has a part that you know. So lots of different options. And this spotlight tool is just kind of fun. It's kind of like a little laser pointer, and
Yeah.
just like kids like to use fun pointers in the
Mhm.
classroom, I'm just looking for those ways to, after the text is created, invite them to come back to the text and find things in the text. So
Nice.
this is just, typical of interactive writing. You can see I've called different children to participate. So I had a child come up and write the two in today, although I took the pen back here. Um, a child wrote the word is and the beginning of Jan, and then I added the rest. Part of the reason I took control here is that this part, is the tricky part in January.
Yeah.
So I also was thinking about running out of space and wanted to make sure that I could finish that sentence up before, I ran out of space on the whiteboard.
Yeah. And that's important to note for interactive writing in any setting, right? Like your intention, there's an intentionality behind sharing the pen.
There is, and
Yeah.
really that's the greatest thing about being able to do things, an activity like this whole group, like if we think about whole group instruction, it's typically pretty challenging to make sure I'm meeting the needs of every child in my classroom.
Mhm.
But when we're using formative assessment and we know what our children control, where they are working on at their cutting edge, I'm able to call children up to the chart and participate based on what they need. And that way it opens this activity up to every child in
Mm.
the classroom. So I might just have a child come up and contribute, a letter that they know because it begins the same as their name. But I also might have a child come up and add the first part of January.
Mhm.
So lots of opportunities to kind of engage all of the children and to make sure that I am asking them to participate at the chart based on what they need in that particular moment.
Nice.
So one of the things that I love about this application is that when I'm finished, I can save the whiteboard in a PDF format. It wants to save as a PNG, which is kind of like an image file.
Mhm.
But there is a down arrow where you save the whiteboard that allows you to select either PNG or a PDF extension.
Mm.
And I want to select the PDF extension. And then at the end of the week, if teachers are doing this with their children every day, they
Mhm.
can combine those PDFs into one and send it out as a weekly update. So children then at home can go back and revisit these texts that they've created in their classroom as well.
There you
So
go.
just a nice way to get those texts, just much in the same way that we do in the traditional setting. One of
Yes.
the things that I love to do with headline news in the traditional setting is print that out every day and make 2 copies and have the child who shared the news, if it is actually, where I'm having kids come up and actually share something, illustrate those copies and take one home, and then keep one that's collated into like January's headline news.
Mm.
So this is another way to kind of get that material out and available to kids. In the classroom, it might, come to rest in a reading center, but here everyone can have access to it if I save those and combine those PDFs. So I really think that is fabulous. The
Yeah.
other thing that I really love about this feature is that when I go to clear the board out, there's several options. So I can, clear my most recent drawing. I can clear it all and create a new board, or I have the option to clear the viewer's drawing. So I can go back in and change something if I need to provide additional support to the child that's been sharing.
Nice.
So that's one example.
Wonderful. So
So
many dimensions to that just one example. There's so many things we can do just with that one example. It's like worth revisiting this video to just listen to it again because there's so many possibilities. And like you started off with, they're like easy and simple. Like once you have the piece written, download it as a PDF, you have a piece of reading material for students at home. Like it's just so simple and yet so powerful.
Definitely. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think like some of the things that I love about using Zoom for interactive writing, when we eventually make it back into, you know, traditional whatever that looks like moving forward,
Yeah.
a traditional setting, there are pieces that I would pull and continue to use, like the PDF piece, so maybe I continue to do interactive writing on the smartboard in the classroom and just call children up to, use some type of mouse or touch screen or however, whatever device we have access to actually get them to engage, much in the same way we would at a chart with
Yeah.
markers.
Yeah. Wow. So what do you
So,
have for us next, Cece?
well, in this same interactive um, experience that I just shared, today is January 14th outside, it's cold and rainy. Um, I mentioned that I only have access to that one whiteboard. And in the book, one of the things that I talk about is not only having the chart where we're creating the text, but also having an additional piece of chart paper that serves as kind of a practice or work page where
Ah, right.
things that we want to problem solve
Yeah.
about how words work, we're able to go over to that chart and work those things out.
Yes.
And so I feel like that's a little bit of a limitation in this particular platform.
Mhm.
And so I've had to kind of move those opportunities to after the text is created. And so
I
I have
see.
a quick little recorded clip that shows what that might look like. And I'm just going to play it for you.
Cool.
I think I'm going to play it for you. Let's see.
There we go.
So today we wrote the word January, and I'm going to get the first part down. Jan. Put that together. Jan. You. January. That works like baby at the end. January. Okay, that Y is the same Y you hear at the end of baby. January. So I am going to get you to take a look at this first part with me, Jan. And that's a useful part, can help us work on other words. So if I changed the J to an R, and I used the same part, and we would make the word and, read it with me, ran. So you can see how Jan and ran have a part that sounds the same and looks the same. Let's try another one. I'm going to get the first part down. Pla. And here's the part that sounds the same and looks the same. A-N. Now let's put it all together. Pla and plan. I'm going to make a plan today. Plan. Okay, I'm going to give you one more. Feeling a little tricky, so watch out. I'm going to get the first part down. Okay, the first part. That's right. And here's the part that we see in Jan and ran and plan. And now keep reading through the word. Stand. See how that works? So why don't you all stand with me and let's read the words together. We're going to start with the word that we wrote in our story, January. We're going to take the first part, Jan, and that is going to help us with the word ran. Next, we have plan and stand. So you can see here is the part that sounds the same and looks the same in all of those words. And that's a part that can help you. So, one of the things that I love about interactive writing are all the word study opportunities that occur.
Yes.
And typically that's something that while the child was at the board adding Jan, I would be over on, the practice page, engaging the rest of the children in that conversation,
Mhm.
asking them to think, can you think of another word that works like that? Getting kids to come up to the practice page to add something to that, even while that one, I'm also checking on the child that's actually on the chart where we're creating the story as that child adds, Jan in January. Uh,
Yes.
a couple things here, the months of the year, as we think about a morning message or headline news, they really become known words to children. They're
Yes.
displayed in pretty much every primary classroom. It becomes a high, what we would say, high utility word. It's not necessarily high frequency in that it occurs in text frequently, but it's very useful and children see it a lot in classrooms. And so why not, do some word work around that so that then when children need to make those links and connections, they have that as a resource, much in the same way when I was writing January and kind of stretching that word out so they could see and connect what they are hearing to what they see on the page as it's written. And I get to January, that Y as long E at the end, making the link for them back to baby, which was, a high frequency or high utility, because really baby again is a word that we see oftentimes in text at the primary levels, but not across all texts. So just the differentiation there, but a link, those links are really important. We want to make those connections with children so that they have another route in to some of those concepts and skills that we're teaching. So in this
Wonderful.
example, we're finished with the interactive writing. I saved the writing as a PDF, and then quickly cleared the board out and go into this extended word study. A little
Ah,
different than it might be done in a traditional interactive writing session, but still a springboard from that created text.
very cool. That is, yeah. You can see the cohesiveness of all of that too, and the possibilities. Really interesting.
I again, in this video, you can see that spotlight feature, and I think
Yes.
that is one of those things that, when you can turn that over as part of sharing the screen and allow children to come back and find things, or add to this list so that it's not just me coming up with the words, but I'm turning that back over
Mhm.
to children and saying, what else can you think of that works this way?
Yeah, really cool. So, what are you thinking of next to share with us as a tip?
Um, Another option that's similar is using Jamboard. So let me advance the slide and make sure I don't start this video over again. So Jamboard, I feel like, again, like these are tools that everyone is familiar with now. And that's the greatest thing. I mean, I think that's like, it's hard to find the positives in this pandemic, but I think the advancements we've made with technology and the ways in which we're able to leverage tools in our teaching has come so far. So I feel like in some ways I'm preaching to the choir, but Jamboard is a free application that's available through through the Google Docs suite. So one of the features that I love about Jamboard is that it allows me to do a Google search for online images. So in the interactive writing example that I'm going to show you, the text was just a list of facts about polar bears. So you can see here that I just did a Google image search of polar bears. And
Nice.
it's really easy. You can see kind of over here on the toolbar on the left-hand side that there's a picture of an image. And when you click on that, you can see all the different options you get. So you could upload a picture of if you had a child that's sharing every day. One of the examples that I give in the book is headline news. I oftentimes have different children come up and share. And so I could upload a picture of the child that's sharing that day and include that as part of the interactive writing. So I can, upload an image. I can do this kind of Google image search, which is what I'm talking about here. And it just, I type in polar bear and a gazillion pictures of polar bears come up. So because this text was about polar bears, I just thought it would be great to include an image of a polar bear on the chart. So if you're thinking about like traditional KWL charts, I mean, this feature is fabulous because whatever whatever topic the class has been studying about, it's quick and easy to do an import of a Google image into the chart before you get started, and then to kind of write around that, kind of like a web of facts. And that's kind of what I'm going to show you in just a second. So kind of just to step this up a notch, I selected 3 images. And what I did was I created a poll in Zoom to see which picture the children would like to feature in the chart or on the chart.
Fun.
So you can see this is just a quick polling feature in Zoom, which again, I feel like everyone is familiar with. And so I try to also think about the type of text that I'm using when they go back to read the poll themselves. So I'm certainly going to go over it with them as a class, but I also want to make sure that when they go back to make their selection, that this is an opportunity to engage in real reading. So the form and function of literacy is fully on display here. So you can see picture 1 is a polar bear. It says polar bear walking. Picture 2, polar bear swimming, and picture 3, polar bear with cubs. So pretty simplistic definitions, but also just both picture 1, you have to navigate that when you're reading, and also the description of what picture 1 is. I tried to select 3 pretty different pictures because in the image search, there were a lot that were the same. And so that way it also allowed me to set the descriptions in the poll, so that for children that may have difficulty with some of that, there's a big difference in both the images and the way the text appears.
That is just so clever to think about something so accessible as another reading opportunity for students. Like adding in that option of a poll, students are instantly engaged because they are making a choice. They're a part of this. And like you said, this is a real world reading opportunity. So even the intention you put behind that as part of reading, it's brilliant.
So once that poll is set up and everyone votes, then of course the picture that received the most amount of votes is the one that makes it onto the chart. So again, this is a little challenging, although the nice thing about Jamboard is that you can use as many slides as you want. And then you can see up here at the top, there's a toggle switch that allows you to advance. So you can see the interactive writing that took place.
Yes.
Here's just a few things on this particular slide that highlight the facts that the children had learned about polar bears. So they're good swimmers. They're considered marine mammals, which is something that would be the children knew, but on this particular slide, it just says mammals, although that was definitely discussed. And again, increasing vocabulary and opportunity to develop understandings about the topics that content area vocabulary, and related to the topic. That's also, I think, really a highlight of interactive writing in this sense.
Yes.
And you can see down here, this says paws help bears walk on thin ice. So again, the nice thing about Jamboard is that I can advance the slide. And if we want to talk about the word pause and use a connection or a link from a potentially known word or a high frequency word saw to paw, I can, encourage that connection and highlight that for the children.
Yes.
So again, this is a little tricky because you have to be comfortable with the tool.
Mm,
you have to make sure that you figured out how it's going to work for kids.
mm,
And so when you go to share this with the children,
mhm,
I can drop the link into the chat in
mhm.
Zoom if I'm connecting with the kids through Zoom or through any chat. And once they have the link, then I can give them kind of editorial rights, and it allows them to interact. Now,
Cool.
I can't necessarily at that point see, but who's doing the writing. So there is potential for kids to get in there when I haven't called on them to, to take some action. But I think one of the outcomes, again, of a positive of the COVID pandemic is that we really are getting children to understand what it means to be a good digital citizen. And so that's part of that conversation. So just a couple other things. Um, you know, once the kids have the link, they are not seeing this version. I'm not sharing my screen with them and having them watch, because it would be very confusing as they interact, because they're seeing their screen and then they would also be seeing the screen that I'm sharing with them. So I just continue to keep a gallery view where we can see everyone. And then once they have the link, they can also see the Jamboard on their side. Um, a couple other things about that. When I want to direct the children to a new slide, let's just say I'm going to leave the first 3 slides blank for interactive writing. So, and I might import that same polar bear image here on slide 1, again on slide 2, and then again on slide 3. So that even if we only get this far in this interactive writing session, we're ready to go, because they've learned more facts than the 3 that are displayed here, and they're going to want to get those down on paper. So we may come back to it. In the meantime, I might want to take them to that practice or work page to do some word solving and a closer look at high frequency word practice or a letter formation. And so I might have that set up on slide 4, right? Because the first 3 slides are for the interactive writing. So one of the things that can be a little tricky is then getting the kids to navigate to the right page. So oftentimes it's helpful just to drop an image in the upper left-hand corner. So there may be, a green triangle on the slides that we're using for the actual interactive writing text. And then there may be like a yellow circle for the work page. And that way, when I want to take them to the work page, I say, I need everyone to go to the page with the yellow circle. Now, I could also say, go to slide 4. Let me go back one. I could also say, go to slide 4 here, but the numbers are kind of small. And again, it's a management issue. Like some kids see it, some kids don't. So just using some other identifiers is helpful to get kids to navigate to the right page, that, the page that we're using at the time, and is just a helpful management tip. The other thing that
Cool.
I can do is also have kind of some additional word study opportunities ready to go that I can then pull up in Zoom and share my screen. So this is one from reallyGreatReading.com. And you can see you can get directly to the letter tiles by putting in the URL /letter tiles. That's there in the upper right-hand corner. In fact, I'll just kind of run my cursor around it so you
Yes.
can see it. And I can have this ready to go. And if I want to do some word study, I can pull this up. And so I can help children make the connection between the known word saw and the word paw. And again, that concept, how these words sound the same. And now we're going to leverage the part in saw to use in paw, so that we make that connection between how they sound and what we would expect to see. And then we can, of course, build paw again and discuss it's not one paw, it's, all paws are designed to help them walk on thin ice. And so we can demonstrate that inflectional ending. So that's just another kind of
Yeah.
quick option to bring in some additional opportunities for word study. This is a there's a paid subscription for the site, but I really find that the features that I want to use are free, and I haven't joined the site. Um, Again, there are a lot of those kind of letter tile sites that I'm sure people are using, and it's just kind of good to have that pulled up and ready to go in that virtual setting, so that if I want to then share my screen and do some quick word study, I can do that and then turn them back to the text and keep on writing.
Yeah. Wow. So many good ideas. And I think that one of the big things for us as teachers, always, but especially now, as we're trying to create these new opportunities digitally, is to go ahead with it, even if you don't feel entirely 100% comfortable. And tell the kids, like, here, we're trying something new. I'm getting used to it, and just give it a whirl, see what happens, and then adjust from there. Because I think sometimes, is it Voltaire that said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good? That we just want to be good at that, good at this. Or just a try makes us better at this, but we don't need to be perfect with digital tools for kids to still be able to learn and clearly use interactive writing, and word study opportunities, on the digital in the digital world. So thank you so much for giving us such practical ideas, and showing us what this looks like with you doing the teaching.
Oh, sure. And I think the other thing is just always thinking about the level of engagement. And in a digital environment, it's not much different than the traditional setting. Like, you've got to the challenge of the child, on the far side of the carpet making their way up to the chart, and there's kids, sitting all over the place, and you know it takes them forever to get to the chart. So what am I doing with the children on the floor while that one child's making their way up to the chart, writing on the chart, and then returning to their seat? So the ways in which we engage children in a traditional sense is often the same way we need to engage them in the virtual setting, because it does take children a little longer. Sometimes they have to give it a go more than once, because the fine motor control isn't the same using a pen on a piece of chart paper as it is using their device. And so we want to just make sure that at the same time we're trying to engage the rest of the class wherever they are. And so in the book, one of the things that I talk about are the participation packs and how we can get kids to participate. And so, kids sending materials at home for kids, making sure they have a whiteboard that they can use. So they are also working on those whiteboards while one child is then, adding to the chart. And then I can stop sharing the whiteboard for a minute, go back to gallery view, and have everyone hold up their whiteboard and show me what they've done. So again, just another way to provide some level of engagement, so they're not just sitting there waiting while that child's at the chart. And I think that's huge. I think that's huge, whether we're in a traditional setting or whether we're in a virtual setting, that we know the power of this practice and the ways in which it teaches foundational skills in a meaningful context. And so I want to do whatever I can to make sure that the kids hang in there with me.
Yeah.
And that means figuring out how to make it fun and exciting for them.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cece.
Welcome.